With each passing year, most animated comedy shows are only getting cheaper and cheaper as executives are tightening the leash and revenue streams are dwindling, especially with kids, which are getting far fewer shows to begin with as the demographic lies in an uncertain state. This is true with every major player that has once been in the forefront of their medium, including Nickelodeon. Constant exec shuffles are canceling shows with promise, original, and reboot alike, and most that do so staying power are clearly made with a budget-conscious mentality, the results of which have been made all too apparent on the screen. This is partially why IPs have become such a go-to crutch. Why use money on developing and fostering a new idea in a dying industry when you can just fall back on an old favorite to make a quick profit while you still can? This isn't to disparage these shows on the whole. Every so often one comes around that defies the odds and becomes a creative oasis, but apart from the general franchise fatigue kicking in, there's the sense that there is nothing out there for the current generation of kids to become attached to for more than a fleeting moment. And with cable television on its last legs and the big entertainment companies bleeding money, even what has come out is quickly fleeting with practically no new greenlights in sight, leaving the industry workers to fend for themselves as we navigate uncertain times. But that doesn't mean what has come out should be glossed over, as even the end of a long lineage is worth preserving and remembering. Let's explore the Wylde Pack. The series was created by the Loud House director and supervising producer Kyle Marshall and his old colleague Paul Watling. The idea came to them when hanging in a Little Dom's restaurant, and it originally entered development for another studio entirely. Jack and Lily were there from the start, but there was originally a sci-fi element that was quickly dropped upon the idea reaching Nickelodeon. There, a 7-minute pilot was produced in 2019 as part of the Intergalactic Shorts program. Though not much information is publicly known about it, it was said to look and feel completely different from what you see now, albeit keeping the family and their relationships. It spent a long time in development afterward as their ideas continued to morph, but with enough push from the right people, it finally was greenlit to enter production for a run of 26 episodes, around April of 2023. The main inspirations were cited by Watling as The Amazing World of Gumball, My Neighbors the Yamadas, and Freaks and Geeks. With a few exceptions, the creators cut the team very loose on where to take the stories, and it allowed for the characters to gain so many of their layers and for the storyboard artists to actively guide the rest of the visual development process. Like the Loud House, Jam-Filled Entertainment was tasked with not just handling animation duties, but also all the layouts and background paint. They were very much trusted with making the visual identity of the show their own. From there, production would span roughly the next 2 years, animation beginning to come in around May 2024, and it was only near the end of this period, in March 2025, that the show was officially unveiled to the public with a rollout on the horizon. The first episode was officially uploaded for free on YouTube as a sneak peek on May 1st, followed by the extended music video with that awesome theme by Lion Child a couple weeks later.
You're not used to normal growing up out on the road. I got used to Canyon Valley being on my own. We'll hang out for the summer, don't know how it's gonna work. Either way, I stick with you for better or worse.
And finally, the official premiere on June 6th. By the time it did reach the screens though, the show's fate had already more or less been sealed. As Paramount had been scrambling to put itself up for sale, many widespread cuts were made all across the board, including within Nick Animation, which put a huge swath of their lineup to an unceremonious end, some more sudden than others. With Wylde Pack specifically, it seems the main person of note here would be Jason Oliveri, who had been with the company since December 2013. With him gone, and the mountain about to be swallowed by a nepotistic heir of an oracle, there was no push for any additional orders. But even this knowledge I had going in didn't stop me from enjoying a good thing while I could, and I'll tell you right now what exactly that is about. So we follow the daily shenanigans of the Korean-American Pack family when Will Wylde's first wife, a globetrotter named Alice, leaves her son Jack to live with them for the summer, wanting him to slow down and settle. He and his half-sibling Lily must now learn to co-live with one another as opposites clash. Lily wants him out of the way so she can use the spare bedroom as a gaming pad, while he's stuck staying in the same place longer than he's ever been in his life. The vast majority of the episodes take up just a day in the family's life, sometimes involving the family's pet-sitting business to groom and board, or the kids exploring an attraction in the town of Canyon Valley, or just the entire family getting in trouble together. While it is mostly episodic, there's a lot of clear cumulative build-up in just this one season. A lot of the early episodes are mainly spent introducing us to most of the locations and side characters, which will go on to populate the show from that point on. Take Whirly World, which is introduced as its namesake in episode 3A, and becomes the focus again much later, where another trip is framed like a mockumentary.
I'm a minor, so legally my guardian is responsible for my alleged actions, which I also deny fully.
Or even how Sammy Sammy's is introduced as one of Lily's landmarks in episode 2B, and they later use this as an excuse to work in a Jaws parody.
Please stop! Thank you! Jeez.
The Boba Get, which is also introduced in its titular episode, becomes a regular hangout spot for Jack and Lily when not in the house. Side note, but I have this and the day the Earth blew up to thank for getting me into Boba. Boba. Even the spooky Miss Withers, who was very much introduced as a plot device, becomes a vehicle for a treehouse of horror-style anthology, which by the way is also home to probably the only real bit of press this show ever got.
Hey kids, this episode has some scary moments.
You might want to grab a parent to watch it with.
Or grandparent. Let's watch this bad boy.
Yeah, seriously, people actually talked about this clearly SMP mandated disclaimer, all for a show that was really no spookier than the equivalent episodes of Gravity Falls. Some press is better than none, I guess. But yeah, point is, there aren't as much in the realm of background filler or one-off settings as there are in other cartoons of this type, which gives Canyon Valley a very tight-knit, intimate feel. There's a good variety of tone to these episodes too. Some episodes are really silly, some are really emotional, others are a mix of both. Some stories are really grounded and domestic, while others are really wacky and quickly go off the rails. According to writer Brandon Hoang's recollections, quote, Adam Colas was our structure guy, Todd McClintock was our crazy, outside-the-box idea guy. While I'm always trying for the funny, it's also important for me to find a heart to a story, and I think you'll see that a lot of my episodes have moments of real tenderness, unquote. And then there's the episode Songandu, which takes the Yamada's influence to its extreme, by just being a whole bunch of lighthearted vignettes that's just a family doing wholesome family things, all intertwined by how many spouting words of wisdom. This is Wylde Pack at its most pure and beautiful, just spending some good old breathing time with such strong, well-defined people. See, it's because of them that, no matter the plot, the episode-by-episode experience doesn't feel inconsistent. The basic appeal is always the same, the sheer charm of the family.
No, no, no. Friend, not food!
Jack is so neurodivergent, it's impossible for me not to love him. He is a boy of simple tastes. I mean, just look at his bedroom. He knows so much about the world from his travels, but struggles to actually connect with people. To him, the sensitivity of whatever moment is going down comes second to documentary potential. He's the kind of film buff who will go see an artsy story all alone in the theater, even if he already owns it on DVD. The kind who consider a freaking Grave of the Fireflies knockoff, in his own words, one of his favorite feel-good films. I can only imagine what his letterbox would look like. But it's obvious that he never actually thinks more than one step ahead. He lives in the moment to a fault. Heck, the main catalyst of the show is putting himself in danger for the sake of getting a shot, after his mom tried to warn him. And this doesn't improve much when adjusting to domestic life. When given a phone, he'll accidentally send an unflattering text about his dad to a group chat, causing a whole wild goose chase just to delete it. When trying out gaming with Lily, he puts her caution to the wind to fuel his drive for success, which has results.
Yeah, you seem busy.
Get out of here!
Yep.
He's also not above pulling some shady activity just to keep a scheme going his way, making multiple black market deals and even getting a job at a water bottle plant. Yeah, that happens. Even when he's finally given the chance to do what he loves, participate in a local film festival, he is quick to realize that no matter how much he films of his family, inspiration just does not come. This is easily one of my favorite Jack stories, and one of the most significant. I think most of us have that one very specific desire you thought you've prepared your whole life for, only for it to, in practice, prove infinitely more stressful and draining than you would have ever imagined. He practically spirals into a state of self-betrayal. And the kicker is, he didn't even get to submit anything. He is just left alone to ruminate in his failure. It's only upon having a heart-to-heart with Lily that he's able to find some acceptance in his efforts. And after that, he chooses to pal around with Lily's besties. He has come so far in the past 19 episodes. It's clear that despite his nature, he wants to involve himself in anything and everything that he can, even if he isn't always successful. If he finds common ground with someone, he'll instantly hit it off. And above all else, he will be there for his friends and family where it counts. He may be a fish out of water, but a precious boy at his core.
I'm 11! I've seen things, man!
Lily, by contrast, is very outgoing and all about living her life, without anything standing in her way. So naturally, Jack's mere presence becomes a constant thorn in her side, with the gaming room setback only being the start of it. She wants to show off how much of a local she is, by both touring Jack around the town and taking the family to a historical seafood restaurant. Neither of them go her way, and this brings out her insecurity that maybe she isn't who she built herself up as. This even extends to her feeling threatened by her place in the family. When she's to take place in the annual trot with Halmoni, Jack proves to be a natural, so he is enlisted instead, making her fear being replaced. And when she isn't like that, she'll often be overreactive in other ways, such as the time the Groom and Board got a 3-star review specifically citing her. Or when she is said to be behaving just like her mom, much to her fear that she isn't being her own being, as she puts it. But the apex of this is probably when she sees her childhood theme park journey to the other side in ruin after spending the whole first half huffing copium. She does gradually learn to see things his way, and even appreciate having him around as a partner in crime. I really like the subplot they threw in for her where she starts becoming lonely because he's at Beef's. It's not much, but it does feel a piece of her character progression that makes where she is by the second half make more sense. But even after she loosens up, she still will be stubborn and try to make things go her way. Like when she tries to direct a K-drama with the family and attempts to dodge Jack's advice as much as possible just to prove that she can do it. She also schemes to get out of a dentist appointment by convincing the family to create a Chuseok feast out of season. A summer Chuseok, as it were. Even something like what Jack gets up to before 10 AM is the sort of thing where her curiosity always overpowers common sense.
None of this blah would have happened if you just let me have my personal space.
Okay, yeah, I shouldn't have followed you. But I only did it because you couldn't let me in.
But even with her still being a mischievous kid, it's fascinating seeing just how much character development she gets in this one season, which isn't even spelled out to the audience. And in general, she just has a distinct frenetic energy where anything she gets up to is sure to be entertaining, which they make sure to balance out with her sweet side.
This day, we strategize! Yeah! This day, we shop! In under 45 minutes! Yeah!
Their mom, Minju Pak, tries her best to be reasonable around her entire family, which mainly just leads to the stress rubbing off on herself. Some of it is inflicted by Halmoni, as generational trauma often is, but when it comes to Jack specifically, she openly worries about striking the right balance between parenting him and catering to him. She keeps asking herself, how do you treat a stepson who you don't feel like you know that well and is living out of his comfort zone? And how do you do so without feeling like you're pushing your biological daughter out?
I'm a horrible stepmother.
Oh boy.
Her overdetermination to be balanced and fair even shows in their work outside the kids. One episode has her play lawyer to the very suspicious sounding Dirk over a geode heist, and the pressure just keeps mounting as not only does the evidence keep getting stacked against him, but the defendant hits her where it hurts most. By the way, she freaking rocks her lawyer outfit. Min has a lot to balance on her plate, and that makes her someone you want to root for in anything she does, even if she sometimes becomes a mess while doing it.
You did this.
What's up?
Stay away from my family.
Will is much more firm about what he thinks is best for his family, but is also more cowardly when it comes to acting on his words.
I'll catch you on the flippity-flop, Willie.
Well, not if I see you first, Tony. Whew. Well, at least I never had to admit that I almost ran him over.
Frankly, he's a bit of a pushover. When the show puts him and Jack together, they really drive home the sheer awkwardness on how it feels to not be particularly close with your birth child, and trying to push what he feels is needed for him to be comfortable when it isn't necessarily what he personally wants. But it also shows that he will ultimately step into action when push comes to shove, which he demonstrates a few more times after. It's clear too that he occasionally gets insecure about his marriage with Min. It's hinted he is quite afraid of Halmoni, repeatedly taking her comments on him personally. Sometimes he worries he isn't pulling enough of his own weight and puts himself through too much trouble just to prove his worth to the family. There's even a fantasy sequence where he recounts a series of events in his way and portrays Min as this.
Excuse me, ladies.
Will is so handsome.
There's a lot you can infer from this moment alone. Of course, he still has plenty of lovey-dovey moments with her, and like any good couple, they're always around to comfort each other. These two are really fun to see together, and their flaws and strengths complement each other so well.
I'm just a small fish, simple foot soldier. You want big fish? The ringleader?
Halmoni, okay, there's no way around it, she's my favorite character. On the surface, she carries a lot of the typical grandma tropes. She's closest to the family heritage, she has some sweet moments, but is also full of savagery, seems standard enough. But she is such a chaotic neutral in so many episodes that makes her presence such a treat. She's like the only one of the family who doesn't constantly have anxiety attacks. In fact, most of the time, when the plot kicks off, she'll just choose to set it all out, maybe give a bit of exposition to set it all in motion, and let the madness unfold all around her. AC is out of the house, I'm just gonna go out to bingo and not tell anyone. Cars stuck in traffic? Fuck y'all, I'm going out on the motorbike. Lily freaking out over a rundown theme park? Nah, I just want that popcorn shrimp. Min and Will going out to dinner? Nah, I'm out with my friends and can't babysit. Oh, but they went out anyway? Party! But when she does get the spotlight, we get the sentimental side of her, and is responsible for some of the show's biggest emotional tugs. The episode that got me to love her is the Meatball of Canyon Valley. The motive she gives Lily as to why she picked Jack to trot with her just always hits me in the feels.
It's different when you are forced to move to a strange new place and leave everything behind.
She may be a bit tough-hearted, but she unquestionably loves her family. This also comes through in Summer Chuseok, where her determination to make the perfect Korean feast gets in the way of what matters most in the holiday. And it's only after a moment of reflection when she thinks back to preparing Chuseok with her own parents. Then there's Dubu, where despite not getting along well with pets, she immediately strikes a connection with a particular dog left for a wash, reminding her of a puppy she had in her childhood, flashback and all. But don't get me wrong, she does still have some inner demons that become unleashed, as proven in Halmoni Learns the Internet. With an episode name like that, you just know disaster is sure to come, and boy does it ever, with her torturing the whole family with stupid scams and hacks galore, all out of a fear of being seen as useless by them.
I guess we can get back on the internet now.
Actually, it's pretty nice out.
Ice cream? My treat.
Oh, did we forget anything?
Hey, guys.
On their own, they are fun enough, but what really pushes them to another level are the dynamics they all share, and how the season places a clear through line on them all gradually becoming a more unified whole. Notably, there is a very deliberate recurring thread early on of Jack having to bond with his step-family. Of course, we see this on a broad level in episodes like Whirly World, but they also make sure to give each parental figure a turn with him. Min gets sticky fingers, Halmoni has the Meatball of Canyon Valley, and Will has father, son, and furniture store. It's interesting to observe how each of them have different approaches and struggles and how they try to accommodate him, and what ultimately brings them all closer together. But of course, being a children's show, it's the half-sib dynamic with Lily that is most front and center. Episode 2B, A Waste of a Perfect Summer Day, is a perfect illustration of Jack and Lily's dynamic early on. Lil wants to show her half-sib her stomping grounds, while Jack wants to explore and face danger in the eye in the name of getting the perfect picture. It lays the groundwork for the adventures that follow, while being an entertaining character study in its own right. This shows up a few more times in episodes like Dead Ed and The Secret of Lake Island, with their behaviors gradually blending closer together. Lily gets more reckless in her goals, and Jack becomes more self-absorbed in his resourcefulness.
Who knew old soda machines could make a flawless irrigation system? I did. I knew that.
These episodes follow a certain formula. They both get in a jam that they must get out of, their opposing brainwaves cause them to blow up, but they ultimately come to understand each other and have a nice heart-to-heart. After the halfway point though, they rarely ever squabble, at least not in the way they did before.
That room is still gonna be mine.
In your dreams.
The second half puts much more emphasis on these two being siblings, and more often than not they'll be on the same general page, which usually just means they get into more trouble than ever.
Like when we shut off all the water in town?
Or destroyed Chuck's house.
Pales in comparison to sinking Lake Island.
We got away with literally everything.
But this feels like a logical development from what we saw before because the individual traits established still come through. Lily is always the more socially dominant, and Jack is the more methodical. On top of that, there are still no shortage of episodes where they are left on their own to still be the kids we've gotten to know and love. The library is probably the best example of this contrast in action. Jack is eager to go there so he can help Lily with her summer reading, but ends up venturing into the wrong part and comes out spooked.
But
Let's go home.
While Lily is reluctant at first from a traumatic experience he's blacked out from her memory, but comes out with a refreshed point of view thanks to the friendly staff.
It wasn't the library at all. I remember what happened that fateful day. I walked outside and got struck by lightning.
how do you forget being struck by lightning?
With the show being so centered on the family, there isn't too much to say in the realm of side characters, but there are a handful worth mentioning. There's Ellie, the family's neighbor who recruits Jack and Lil into a secret club she dubs the Raven Club.
Sha sha sha!
Her thing is that she's really into the supernatural and conspiracies. Think Andromeda from Big City Greens, but way more lovable. She's always sneaking around and getting to the bottom of any suspicious character in Canyon Valley, which there turns out to be a good number of.
The cream always rises to the top. Corruption cream.
Huh?
It's clear she really values the camaraderie of these little weirdos though, and while she'll cross the line sometimes in all her sneaking and suspicion, she will come around in the end.
If you ever need our services, one weirdo to another. Shasha!
Sha!
We also have Lily's best friends, Anusha and Debs. They call themselves Lad. Apart from a few cameos, they actually first appear pretty late despite having a pre-established bond. But they are smart to introduce them with an episode that shows the three heading out by themselves, and running from a bunch of bitter losers, before you get another that actually has them meeting Jack.
Best friendships take time.
I hated Lil when we met in second grade. I put gum in her hair.
That was you?
It gives us some time to get to like them as a team, even if there's not much to these two in terms of character. Jack gets a best friend too, in this kid named Beef. In another fun bit of cross-episode continuity, they meet as part of a groom and board job where they end up bonding over their love of underground film, all as a subplot in an episode focused on the Pack Women.
We're being buried alive in trash! Just like that 1997 investigative documentary about the American landfills, Freedom from Decay. You watched that one too?
The very next episode, Meets of Strength, actually puts this new friendship in the spotlight, where the boys agree to sleep over at Beef's place, where it turns out he's from a family of wrestlers, and some of the designs we get are... what the fuck? But apart from the common ground, there's not much that can be said about Beef, especially since he doesn't get another spotlight after this. Shame. Then there's Chuck, the deadbeat neighbor who just kinda takes life as it comes and follows whatever whims he happens to get. Like putting on a community theater play following a childhood memory, hiding dirty laundry from his mom, and staying with the Wylde Pack when his house gets destroyed by sticky hands. You know, as what happens with all of us. He's fine, has its moments, but he's never a character I'm actively excited to see.
Oh, hey, dudes. Look, they trapped tiny newspapers in here. It's crazy.
The artwork was one thing that stood out about this show right from the first look. The art director, Chizu Kim, had previously held that role on Middlemost Post and Summer Camp Island, and their impact is apparent when you compare this with the latter in particular. There's a sketchiness that hits a very fine line between doodly and refined, and the backgrounds, many of which were designed by Thomas Whaleman, another SCI carryover, being downright infested with detail that gives them all such a distinct, specific character. Some of the character designs are admittedly stronger than others. The family members all stand out from each other pretty well, and a lot of the better ones have a specific article that helps distinguish them, like Lily's red beanie, Ellie's massive spectacles, or Will's cone nose. Those words, not mine. But others, particularly in the side cast, do have a habit of blending into the background to the point it's easy to forget in the moment who are actually recurring characters. And that's when they don't go too far in the other direction and become... seriously, what is this? But it's how they're brought to life where it becomes all the more interesting. Again, performed by Jamfield, this takes a few leaps to set itself apart from the Loud House. There's a greater emphasis on posing, having the habit of skipping in between frames to make a certain action feel more dynamic, which especially works in tandem with the lime boil effect going on. However, there's a noticeable shift over the 26 episode run of just how these techniques are used. The first 2.5 hours are relatively tame and grounded, focusing more on looking nice and atmospheric over going for the easy comedy. However, in episode 2B, we get this bit.
Oh, I didn't know you were afraid of minecarts.
That sudden movement combined with the metal grinding sound always makes me laugh, and it stood out to me right from the first watch. And over the next several episodes, you can sense the artist and Jamfield gradually becoming more comfortable pushing the character models and seeing what kinds of takes you can get out of them. Sometimes it's just simply exaggerating a body part for a quick comedic effect, other times it's turning the entire main cast into... freaking Pac-Man heads. The episodes that pop off the most in this regard are when Victor Courtwright, the man behind Thundercats Roar and the saddest corner of Cartoon Network's grave, gets involved. His first contribution to the show was in the mid-season finale Journey to the Other Side, specifically this freakout scene.
Hun?
Look at how much her eyes just practically pop off their sockets. The facial proportions getting so demented they look practically non-human. How incredibly off-model they get just to emphasize a single sentence. And then Jack gets in on the action too and just... God, it's so good, man.
Oh, but I wouldn't want to ruin Lily's precious air.
Well, why breathe air when you can just film it?
And it's clear the team knew they had something good, because not only did they immediately promote him to a board director for the second half, but one of those episodes with him in that role was pushed far ahead in airing order to the point Nick made it one of the first clips shown. That episode was Just a Little Pipe Problem, a simple bottle episode where the family must replace a sink pipe in the grooming board trailer to pass inspection. And while fine as written, it is absolutely carried by the extreme faces and exaggerated imagery that especially stood out in direct contrast with all the early episodes that surrounded it in airing.
Don't thank me. I'm just a civil servant using non-violent action to protect the innocent from incompetence. Tax the rich!
This more or less becomes the standard for most of the second half of the run. They don't all go to this extreme, but half the time it takes just looking for who's in the episode credits to know where this is heading. Not even just with Courtwright, but Busak Kuborn's episodes also more often than not have more than their share of downright insane moments. Mostly just in absolutely shattering the model sheet for more reactions, but also in gross out because Nickelodeon. It doesn't come up that often, but when it does come, it leaves an impression, for better and for worse. It absolutely makes the show live up to the wild part of its name. And when most of the competition looks like this really makes it all the more worthy of praise. Sometimes the show can feel a bit tonally confused. It does feel like from episode to episode, it can be indecisive over if it wants to be a more feel-good slice-of-life sort of program, or a completely off-the-wall screwball comedy. In many ways, this is a positive in that it gives the show a lot of range, but there are times when it can feel like you're going from one extreme to the other in a jarring way. It also makes it hard to comprehend which actions in the show have consequences. For example, the kids freaking destroy Chuck's house in one episode, which is kinda a major deal in a show where stuff does carry over between episodes. And then that same episode ends with their house getting destroyed, all with a jokey cop-out ending.
Oh, hey, y'all want to stay at my vacation house?
Which feels like it should be more serious than how the episode is portraying it. Like I said before, there could have been more balancing on the side characters that allowed Anusa, Debs, and Beef to get more focus, and every so often there's a gag or plot point that becomes a little too silly, even for a show that likes to play loose with reality.
Please, help! I'm scared! Please, Mommy!
A few episodes even have a few weird notes that feel like they're gonna come back later, but they just don't. Maybe they would have come back in a potential second season? Who knows, but it does feel weird when it comes up. But other than those scattered points, it really is amazing just how much this package of 26 half hours feels complete. Sure enough, the final episode, titled in a cute mirror to the first one, has the gang prepping for Alice to pick Jack back up, and for him to say farewell to Canyon Valley.
Lil, get those drinks ready. Halmoni, you... No. Fair enough.
After some party shenanigans and some transportation shenanigans, Jack comes to the realization that he doesn't want to leave his new life behind, and Lily admits in turn that she doesn't want to lose her brother.
I don't want to lose my brother.
And I don't want to lose my sister.
And because of all we've seen them go through, and how much their dynamic has evolved as I've mentioned, you completely buy this as the logical conclusion.
I want to be here. Canyon Valley is my home.
That's all I needed to hear.
One really depressing meta joke later, we end on a little sequel hook.
Just wait until school next week.
Wait, school?
Oh, to speculate over the misadventures that could have happened from that one realization. So yeah, like a lot of current gen cartoons for this demo, even though the season manages to hold well on its own, there is the feeling that it deserved to have more if things actually went its way. But you can't say it didn't make the most of the time they had, and I think that is something to be admired in its own right, and these stories deserve to be remembered. On February 13th of this year, word began to circulate that the Loud House, after 10 consistent years on the air, is on the cusp of wrapping up production, reportedly from new owners at Skydance cleaning up house, with the show's crew being gradually let go after their long tenures at the company upon finishing their last work for the show. To me, this was the moment that officially cemented what I've been feeling deep down for some time. The business models we've known all our lives are crumbling beyond any chance of repair, with kids animation especially falling into a death spiral. The egregious failure to adapt to modern viewing habits has led to kids falling out of the shuffle in the corporate structure, apart from a few notable players. Now adult animation is faring considerably better, as those are easier to target in the streaming age, but even that is gradually dwindling in terms of opportunities. Going forward, whether we want to admit it or not, artists will have to adapt to building up a name for themselves to survive this storm, be it partnering with smaller entities or going at it on their own. Indie projects are certainly doing a good job at tiding this over as Hollywood continues to crumble under its own weight, but new business models and platforms will have to emerge at some point, possibly taking pages from what Glitch is doing in order for it to become a legit sustainable business once more. And it'll be up to us as loyal followers to uplift these names, including those I've mentioned in this video, and help guide such a persistent art form towards a brighter future. And part of it is by acknowledging the legacy they left behind at the ends of such a prominent chapter that we were here to experience.
Let's face it, no one's ever gonna remember us.
Wylde Pack is proof that even at the end of the line, groups of people were able to come together to deliver something meaningful, no matter how many kids it reached. And it may just be one of these people who helped close one door that will help open the next.